Hello, seventh graders. I have made this ed puzzle over the material that we are going to work on today. We are going to talk about the Jim Crow laws. Now, last week we learned a little bit about the black codes. So after you watch this video and answer the questions throughout, you will then work on a Google Slides presentation showing the difference between the black codes and the Jim Crow laws. If you don't get this presentation done, it is not homework. I will work with you on it on Wednesday once I am back. So, the Jim Crow laws, some background. They were created in the South after Reconstruction to legally separate white and black people. Tennessee is primarily the first state to implement these laws in 1881, and it was on train cars. Soon after that, though, every southern state started to create their own laws to deprive African Americans the same public space designated and enjoyed by whites. So where does this name come from? The origin of the name Jim Crow law is actually much older than the laws themselves. It's credited to a song and dance man, Thomas Dartmouth Rice, who lived in the 1820s. He was the first white man to attempt blackface. He wanted to depict a fictitious slave from a plantation. He came up with a song and dance called Jump Jim Crow. So, which word best describes the origin of Jim Crow? The Jim Crow song. The song started out with 4 verses, but grew to have 40 verses, which included a lot of insensitive digs towards black people. It was so derogatory, and it further divided the rift between black and white communities. After some time, this song became to represent the image of African Americans in general. Authority of Jim Crow laws. So authorities in the South were extremely strict in enforcing the Jim Crow laws. For example, in hospitals, only white nurses attended to white patients. Blacks and whites had different sectors, such as trains, buses, restaurants, schools, mental hospitals, parks, cemeteries, among many other things. Plessy v. Ferguson. In 1896, a famous Supreme Court case challenged this societal attitude, which was called Plessy v. Ferguson. In this case, a man named Homer Plessy objected the idea to continue sitting on the black rail car. He sued, stating that it violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court overruled this. They stated that it was acceptable and legal to create separate but equal spaces for whites and blacks. So what can you imply from the history regarding Jim Crow laws? Ending of the Jim Crow laws. It took many decades for the Jim Crow laws to hit a brick wall. That wall came in 1954 with the Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka. The Supreme Court ultimately ruled that the current separate but equal laws were inherently unequal. What does the word inherently mean? The Civil Rights Act of 1964. On July 2, 1964, Jim Crow laws finally were abolished. This was thanks to President Lyndon Johnson. He signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It put a stop to discrimination against black people in public spaces. So how long did it take for Jim Crow laws to be abolished? Now, I'm going to show you some examples of Jim Crow laws from the southern states at Reconstruction time. So this is out of Birmingham, Alabama, in 1930. It shall be unlawful for a Negro and white person to play together or in company with each other or in any game of cards or dice, dominoes, or checkers. So write what this means in your own words. Here's another example. This comes from Georgia in 1926. No colored barber shall serve as a barber to white women or girls. Again, write this law in your own words. This Jim Crow law comes out of Missouri in 1929. Separate free schools shall be established for the education of children of African descent, and it shall be unlawful for any colored child to attend any white school, or any white child to attend a colored school. Write this law in your own words. And the last one for this slideshow, this comes out of Oklahoma in 1915. The Corporate Commission is hereby vested with power to require telephone companies in the state of Oklahoma to maintain separate booths for white and colored patrons when there is a demand for such separate booths. Again, write down what this means in your own words. Now, you are going to work on this slideshow. So we're going to look at the Jim Crow laws that you just learned about and the black codes that we learned about last week. Go ahead and, when you are in this slideshow, add your name here. Using the internet, conduct research on the Jim Crow laws and the black codes. Complete the following slides with information you discover in your search. On this slide, you're going to tell me what year did each start and end. So what year did they start and end? What's the definition of the Jim Crow laws and what's the definition of the black codes? What is the reason each one ended? What are two examples of two laws from each? That should say from, not form. I will fix it for you before you actually have this assigned in Canvas. And then how were Jim Crow laws different from black codes? Once you get this done, you can submit this on Canvas. Again, if you do not get this done today in class, it is not homework. I hope you have a good day, and I will see you tomorrow.